All right, I want to make a video about the different types of homeless people, but the problem is once I get to thinking about it, and I think of all the people I met out on the street and how some of them, it really is not their fault. It's you know, it's society's fault, and I don't fall into that category. I chose to go be homeless, but when I think of some of these people, I get angry and I end up ranting and raving about you know just the what type of society would produce people like this, people who literally they're completely out of their minds, and they weren't born that way. This society drove them that way, and it wasn't even like the structure aspect of society. It wasn't the government, it wasn't the economy, it was other people just like you and me, uh, you know who just abused these people and neglected them so much that it's cost them their sanity. But so that's I'm gonna try not to rant and rave, but I got to be honest, it makes me angry because then on top of that, now they look fucked up. They look sometimes they're completely filthy. I seen one lady out on the street. Her whole hair was one dreadlock. This was a white lady who she must not have washed her hair for 10, 20 years or something. It became one big dread just hanging off the back of her head. And, for people to end up like that, something is wrong. You know what I mean? They weren't born that way. So I'm one of those people who I don't think mental illness is a natural occurrence. I do believe it happens to people because of just circumstances. And, then they try to get on some sort of medication like psych meds or antidepressants or sometimes a combination of things. And I think those things just make them worse. Now, I'm not a doctor. I'm not trying to give medical advice. If you know yourself better than I do, if you feel that you need those types of medications, don't let me stop you. If you're on those things and they're helping you, don't let don't just stop taking them because of the things I say. I don't want to be responsible for anyone. I don't I can't speak for other people. I can only speak for myself and the people I've met. So, I've never met a person and I've met some truly crazy people, literally quite insane. I've never met one who I thought they were just born that way. They were driven insane. So let me try to get to the different types of homeless people. The first one I want to address is the type like me, where we just checked out of society. I realized that even if I play their game by their rules, I still can't win. The best I can do is to scrape by, and that's how it was turning out. Now, if the economy didn't collapse, I don't know. Maybe I would have started making a whole bunch of other money running my own remodeling or contracting business. I don't know. That was the industry I was in construction. But my experience in construction was I was just trying to learn carpentry and concrete and basic remodeling, commercial and residential. So I was taking any jobs, doing whatever they told me to do, and not being paid much to do it. And thinking to myself, the longer I do it, the more experience I get, the more tools I buy, the more they're going to pay me. And that was pretty much how it was working out, um, until the whole economy kind of collapsed. And I realized now this system cannot be relied upon, not for me. One of the main reasons I got into construction was because I was thinking there would always be work. That wasn't the case. Once I realized that was not true, I started thinking differently. I need to come up with something else. I don't want to get to a point where there's no work, because what do you do then? I'm going to go bag groceries? No. I sacrificed too much to not bag groceries or flip burgers. I want to work outside. I don't want to if I'm learning, it's not a waste of time. So, if in construction, I was always learning. Bagging groceries, I'm not going to be learning. I'm not learning a trade. I'm not learning anything valuable. I didn't want a job where I, I just didn't want to waste my time doing menial bullshit. And in construction, I felt that my time was being spent in a wise way. I was getting paid not much, but I was learning a lot. But and I was also setting a foundation for a solid future because I'll always be able to work. Once that turned out to be false, I realized that if if this can't be relied upon, nothing can. If I can't rely on, you know, being a skilled carpenter and being able to get work, then what else is there? I'm gonna start devoting myself to another trade, electrician, plumber, whatever. It didn't matter. They all collapsed in 2008. So the reality hit me that I've played the game by their rules, and they didn't hold up their end of the bargain. They let the whole economy collapse to the point where I can't even make money now, even though I've devoted my life to playing the game by their rules. It didn't work out for me. So I realized that this is a game that I'm not going to play because I have no control, and the people who do have control can't be trusted or relied upon. So there's a lot of people out on the street just in the same situation I was in. They just came to the conclusion that the game is rigged and they're not going to play it anymore. Now, the people who were like that, like me, and I'm not trying to toot my own horn, but were sharper than the average homeless people in a lot of ways, where there's a lot of people out there who are homeless who they checked out of the game. They're not playing the game no more, but they still make money. Um, and you would never even know they're homeless. You wouldn't know I was homeless unless you saw all my stuff and you saw me sleeping on the street or whatever. I mean, I was riding a bike with a luggage attached to the back, so you might, if you saw me riding my bike, you wouldn't think I was homeless. You'd think I was traveling across the country, which I was clean. I was well put together. I was wearing it exactly what I'm wearing now. Yeah, you know I had this jacket when I was homeless, and I had this hat. Um, I gotta say this: these fur hats are worth their weight in gold. You'd be amazed how much warmer just having this on your head. I'm telling you, you would be shocked. It's you know fur is nothing beats fur. It's waterproof. The water just rolls right off it. It keeps you warm like nothing you could imagine. So I actually got this hat for free real quick. So I was sleeping on the street in Manhattan. I'm in my little shelter, which this was my this was my shelter to um, military. It's just a military pawn shop. They make great shelters. Anyways, I'm sleeping in my little shelter. Not sleeping. I was sitting there smoking a bowl, probably. And I hear a voice outside my shelter. He's like, "Hey, man, you want a hat?" I'm thinking he's just gonna give me like a beanie, which I didn't want. But I was thinking I'll take it and I'll give it to someone else. And so I'm like, yeah, sure, I'll take a hat. I pop up out of my shelter and he hands me this. I'm like, damn, bro, you serious? He's like, yeah. I'm like, you sure? That's a expensive hat. He's like, dude, I'll get another one. It was like 10 degrees out that day. And I was like, wow, man, I really appreciate it. Thanks. And so it was one of these rich Upper West Side New Yorkers who just gave me a really nice, expensive fox fur hat, which to this day, it's one of my favorite possessions. It was a blessing. So, but yeah, if you're in a cold climate, these are worth having. I couldn't even just go get one and wear it when it's cold. You'll be amazed how much warmer you are. So, anyways, yeah, the different types of homeless people. There's a type like me. We just checked out. You wouldn't even know they're homeless. They're out there making money. They're, you know, they're a different level of homeless. You wouldn't even know they were homeless. Then there's another type where basically they were a normal person until they got themselves addicted to some heavy drugs, either opiates or crack or uh, meth. These are the drugs that ruin people's lives. Alcohol, believe it or not, that was probably, aside from the opiates. Now I'm talking New York City. I don't know what it's like in other parts of the country, but in New York City, the two main drugs that cause people to be homeless is the opiates and alcohol, and a lot of those people end up addicted to both. Um, and so basically, what happened was they were normal people, and then they got addicted to that heavy stuff, and it got such a stranglehold on their life that it became more important than maintaining a roof over their head. So, these people on the street who are truly addicted to these things, they don't care about anything but getting their drug. They don't care about nothing else. A lot of them are pretty ruthless when it comes to making money. They'll steal, they'll do violence, they'll do prostitution, they'll do anything for money. They just want their drugs, and it's a shame, but it happens. So there's another type. Another type. Now these are the ones that really used to bother me because I felt that it really was not their fault. A lot of people out on the street, you know, it's it is their fault. Sometimes they just didn't want to work and they were lazy and they don't care. And I knew people like that too. They don't care. They they're not they're not willing to spend 8 hours a day doing things they don't want to do. But the other thing is they're not willing to really do anything to make money. Just the quickest, easiest way to make money. That's what they're interested in doing. A lot of them will steal and do other not nefarious activities to make their money, but so they don't fall into the first category. They have their own category where they don't really have a whole lot of honor or integrity. They just don't care. You know they're they don't give a shit. They'll steal from you, um, and it, you know I didn't have much respect for those type of people. Um, another Now this is the type of homeless people that really used to bother me because these were people. Now this is a new category. Now these people, they're usually in the worst shape out there. They look like they look bad. They look filthy. They look crazy. No one really treats them too well. Nobody wants them in. They come into Starbucks and no one wants to sit next to them. Sometimes they smell real bad. There's homeless people in New York that smell. I'm telling you, like they smell like nothing you've ever smelled. Um, One time I got on the train, and this was the first time I experienced this. I had been back in New York for maybe a year. I'm like, it's a busy time of the day. All the trains are packed. The train shows up, and there's an empty car. I'm like, oh, that's where I'm going. I'm gonna get a seat instead of standing there all cramped in all the other cars. I go in there. No one else is getting in there. I'm like, what the hell? The door's closed. All of a sudden, I, I smell what smells like. It's beyond explaining. It smells like, imagine someone stopped showering 10 years ago, but on top of that, they've been pissing in their pants for 10 years. It's such a smell that it like burns your eyes. I'm telling you, it's like urine that's been accumulating for like a decade. I don't know how to explain. It's like it smells like a chemical, like pneumonia or something. And so I'm on the train, like locked in there with this smell, and I look over, and there's someone laying on the bench who looks like a corpse. I mean, there's now that type of homeless people that someone like that, they're so far gone, they can't even go in nowhere. I don't even know. Like, people must just give them money occasionally out of pity. I don't know. God looks out for drunks and fools and kids, they say, and so I don't know. Something keeps them going. And I mentioned earlier, I saw the one lady where her whole hair was just a dreadlock, and it wasn't a fashion thing. It was She was homeless and nuts. And I don't think these people are just born crazy. I think what happens is, and I've talked to some of them, because Once I started making pretty good money doing the portraits, I wasn't opposed to when you do portraits on the street in New York City, you attract a lot of homeless people because a lot of them, they don't know what to do with themselves. They see someone who's going to be sitting there for hours and they just want someone to talk to. So I was open to that when my money was good. When my money was not good, I was not open to it. I would try to be polite and be like, bro, I got to make money. You're chasing away all the customers. Other times I wasn't so polite about it. But I regret that thinking back on it. I should have been nicer to some people. But, I'm not Mother Teresa and I'm not perfect. But so, but I'll give myself credit for this. A lot of the times I was a lot nicer to these people than most people were. So, um, I'm not going to say no names, but I'll give you an example. There was this one dude who, uh, I mean, he just been homeless probably since he was about 15, 16. Total wreck. I mean, in the winter, this guy would be walking around with no shoes on. So someone would give him a coat at some point, but by the end of the winter, the coat would be shredded. It would look like he was dragged behind a car. I mean, because he didn't take care of himself at all. And I used to talk to him quite a bit, especially after the whole 2020 thing, when I couldn't work anyway. I would just go sit in my spot and not even put up my sign and just chill because I didn't know what else to do with myself. I couldn't work, but I would just sit there, and he would come by a lot, and I couldn't work anyway, so I would talk to him. And I'm very good at reading people, and I mean reading the words they're not saying. I can sense energy off people and all that shit. I, I do believe I am somewhat psychic. I can't sit here and like predict the future, but what I can do is feel people's energy and feel their feelings. I'm a very sensitive person in that sense where I'm just really good at sensing how people feel. So, anyways, I talked to him and I realized after talking to him for a while, he started off normal, but what happened was his parents were kind of neglectful and abusing. And it's not like I was gleaning this off of just talking to him. It's not like he was treating me like a shrink or anything. I would ask him questions. I was curious how someone ends up like this. And I talked to a few people like this. And the one thing they have in common, really, is what happened was everyone was neglectful and abusing towards them, and no, people would do them wrong, steal their money, or rip them off, or everyone just did them wrong their whole life, and all this shit accumulates over time and makes them crazy to the point where they don't even know how to trust their own perception of reality. This is my theory. So people have been gaslighting them and neglecting them and abusing them for so long that it makes them crazy. They, at this point, since everything has been so foul, and look, how you react matters too. You know, sometimes they would in turn do these things to other people, which accumulates just bad karma and bad things. And so eventually it just makes them crazy because, you know, all they're doing is what other people have done to them. And it just gets to the point where enough time goes by to where they kind of lose their minds. And this is another reason because I had been watching this guy for years. I had known him for years. So, when I first met him, let's say, um, let's say 7 years ago, well, 7 years prior, he was pretty normal. He was kind of a street dude, like he was known for trying to steal people's shit or whatever, and I didn't know him well back then, but as the years went on, he'd be in and out of jail and more thing, just eventually he ended up a complete lunatic out on the street, looking filthy, barely coherent. You could barely even talk to him. Um, he really liked me because I didn't treat him like shit, basically. And even, you know, he was asking about me for years after I left New York in 2020, I heard. I heard he's in jail now. He got into it with the cops. But anyways, so I watched him deteriorate over the years from a somewhat normal kind of street kid. I wouldn't say a thug. He's not gonna be robbing people at gunpoint or getting in shootouts. But if you leave something sitting there and you ain't looking, he'll snatch your money. That type of person. So I just watched over the years as his condition deteriorated to the point where around 2020, right before I left New York, he was completely out of his mind. He, you know, sometimes he'd have shoes, sometimes he wouldn't. People would see him on the street and be like, oh, give him a pair of shoes or whatever. But it didn't even matter to him. And then, it just he wasn't born crazy. He was driven insane, is my point. And there's a lot of them out there that way. And like I said, I don't think they're born this way. And that's because I sat there and watched it happen to this guy over the years. He went from coherent and normal, not a good person, but a sane one, I would say, to completely insane within 7 years or so. And so this is one of the reasons I think the way I think, where I don't think mental illness is a natural occurrence. If it was, it would have been a common occurrence all throughout history, not just within the last 20 years, really, where you've got all these crazy people all of a sudden. It's a societal issue. It ain't a natural thing. I don't think. And I don't know if I mentioned this earlier, but if these mental health professionals, these psychiatrists and psychologists and counselors, if they knew what they were doing, wouldn't they be curing people? They're not curing people. What they do is they give people medications, which they don't fix nothing. They just cover it up. So if someone's so disgusted with their life that they can't stomach living, and then you give them enough drugs to where that feeling goes away, you still didn't really fix the problem. You know what I mean? And I can tell you from people I know who are on prescription meds and stuff, it ain't curing nothing. It's just covering the stuff up. So look, here's the upside. Uh, all suffering is temporary. I do believe in reincarnation. I do believe that, you know, the I'm getting a notification. So, I don't believe that these people are just gonna their one shot at living. They're gonna spend it just suffering. I do believe everything evens out karmically. You know, uh, it's complicated shit. If you're into that shit, go on my Patreon. So that's the stuff I talk about on Patreon. I talk about the mechanics of reality, and go on my Patreon if you want the details on that. But you know, I uh, everything evens out. So whatever suffering anyone goes through, that you know, it's going to even out in this life or the next one. You know what I mean, or the one after that. Or, but you know, it's yeah, it's a hard life in modern Western societies is hard. They gaslight us into thinking we're really fortunate to be. Oh, you're lucky you're not in some third world country. Yeah, right. In a third world country, I'd be a very valuable asset. I'm very good with my hands. I'm very smart. I'd be taking over the place. So, they try to make it seem like we're so lucky. Here's the reality of the first world Western societies. We're all being gaslit. We're all being manipulated. We're all being taken advantage of. We're all being robbed blind. We're generating all the wealth, and it's all being taken from us. So, think what you want, but look into it. Go on my Patreon if you want details. I explain it all from the top to the bottom, and I'm open for debate. If you think any of it's wrong, let's talk about it. Let's find the truth. I'm not pushing a narrative. I'm looking for the truth, and go on my Patreon. And if you can dispute any of it, feel free. We can have a debate, a friendly debate. It doesn't have to be, you know. angry. I'm looking for the truth. If I'm wrong, let's find out. Let's find the truth together, you know? So, anyways, I think I actually managed to hit all the points I wanted to hit in this one. So, I'm gonna leave it at that, I guess. I appreciate every single one of you. I'm picking up a whole lot of subs and likes and comments lately. I really appreciate you. Welcome to the show. um, and I appreciate the tips. I see yous. I really appreciate yous. Venmo, Cash App, PayPal. It's not like people are sending me a lot of money, but the people who do, people send me a buck or two here and there. I see it. I appreciate you. Thank you. You don't feel any obligation to do it. I'm not trying to milk everyone for every penny. I'm, I appreciate every single one of you. So, I guess that's the end of this video. And yeah, I didn't get much done YouTube wise this week. I had a lot of shit going on, but next week I should be back on it. Every couple of days get a video up. So you know, appreciate yous, and everybody have a good one. I'll see you on the next one.